What up, motherfucks? This video is a first, okay? I am currently watching NXT TakeOver War Games while I'm finishing up some work. I'm watching it a little bit late. Like, I didn't start it, like, live. So, that's good. I can skip around a little bit, I guess. I'm going to review it probably, but I couldn't help myself. I had to stop doing my work right now, even though I'm so close to being done, because I had to say a few things about this event and wrestling in general, okay? First of all, War Games is a stupid concept, okay? I'm sorry, I have to say it. Like, I've been watching, I was looking forward to it very much, and I've been enjoying the last few years of War Games because it's new and novel. But as I watched the first match, the women's War Games match, it's just stupid. It's goofy. It's a giant cage around two rings. For some reason, there are two rings. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. There's a lot of people, so you need two rings to contain all the chaos, right? And the only thing that this adds is the little element between the two rings, the little piece of metal that connects the two rings, because you can like DDT someone there or do something like that, right? Maybe the potential for like a double springboard type move, but beyond that, it's so gimmicky that it's just stupid. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain gimmick matches that are awesome, right? They're awesome because they have a purpose. You know what I'm saying? So, for example, you have, I don't know, the traditional cage match, right? The entire point is that you are meant to not escape, and if you do, you win the match, right? Then we have the Hell in a Cell. You know, it's a cage match, but you really can't escape this time, motherfucks. You cannot leave. That's the whole point of Hell in a Cell. Forget the fact that in like a lot of the first few Hell in a Cells, everyone left the cage at some point, you know what I mean? But the point was, you can't leave, right? The entire premise of the first Hell in a Cell was that this cage is going to keep people out, people that might interfere out, and it's going to keep Undertaker and Shawn Michaels in. And this was perfect because they introduced Kane as a guy who just tears the door down, basically doesn't give a fuck, you know? Nothing stops Kane, right? So he comes in there, destroys Undertaker, Shawn Michaels wins, right? It's a very effective way to use the Hell in a Cell match, especially because it was the first one, to introduce Kane, right? There was a purpose behind it. The Royal Rumble. The point of that is that you have 30 people, right? The entire company, basically, the entire roster of relevant wrestlers, and the one winner becomes the number one contender. It makes perfect sense, right? So there's things that make sense and things that don't, right? Gimmick pay-per-views have ruined this completely, right? So if you have a pay-per-view called Hell in a Cell, there's the only reason you're having a Hell in a Cell match, right, is because it's time for the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. There's nothing there. There's nothing special about it, you know? There's no, like, these two guys hate each other. Like, they're going to have a grudge match. It's just, the next pay-per-view is Hell in a Cell, so Jey Uso and Roman Reigns are going to have a Hell in a Cell match. The next pay-per-view is Blindfold Mania, so they're going to have a blindfold match. Same thing with War Games, right? They did a really good job this year in creating this feud between Undisputed Era and the Pat McAfee group, you know? But that's a rarity, right? And that only happens because, I mean, I hate to say it, but Undisputed Era, by virtue of being a faction, can carry a match like this, right? They can have a faction feud because they're basically just a faction, right? Otherwise, they haven't done anything for the last year, you know? So that works. Now, if you have a match where you have the women's NXT Io Shirai, and then you have Rhea Ripley, who participated at WrestleMania as the NXT champion, why the hell is Shotzi Blackheart, you know, the captain of this team, right? Why is it Team Shotzi, right? This would be the equivalent of having like Undertaker, Kane, The Rock, Stone Cold, and I don't know, Scotty 2 Hotty and a Survivor Series team. I was gonna say Taka Michinoku, but I figured I'd switch it up for you motherfucks, right? And then having it called Team Scotty 2 Hotty, you know what I mean? Who the fuck cares about Scotty 2 Hotty? You get what I'm saying here, motherfucks? So, but that's neither here nor there. That's more reserved for the review of this pay-per-view, right? The first match hasn't ended yet here, so maybe it's gonna pick up and become amazing. But the reality is, this gimmick is a stupid gimmick. It's a stupid match, and the fact that it happens at a set date, it makes it even more ridiculous, right? Everything else makes sense, more or less, right? Except for like pay-per-views that have gimmick matches. So even something like Money in the Bank, right, being at WrestleMania, or even having its own pay-per-view, at least it makes sense because it's now a part of wrestling, right? At WrestleMania, it's designed to give someone an opportunity to have a WrestleMania moment and then kind of establish themselves as like a main character in the next season of wrestling that starts the Monday after WrestleMania, right? That's the whole point. You know what I mean? There's a purpose behind it. There's absolutely no purpose to having a War Games match, you know, just because it's War Games time, right? Like they're gonna settle it in War Games. It shouldn't be like that. The way it should be is like two people hate each other so much, and throughout many weeks or perhaps many months of a rivalry, they keep having their matches interrupted by people interfering. So the only solution is they have a Hell in a Cell match, right? Same thing with ladder matches, you know? Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels, before, when they had the first ladder match, the whole point was they both had a claim, relatively legitimate claim, to being the IC champ. So what are they gonna do? They have to find a way to have someone claim both titles, right? Symbolically hanging them. So the person that claims them literally claims them. They grab them. They're like, it's mine now. You know, these are both mine. You know, I'm the IC champ. You see what I'm saying, motherfucks? So that's the first point that this pay-per-view made me think of, right? Another thing that I can't stop thinking about is how shitty are these female wrestlers, right? They're just such shit. They're all garbage. You know what I'm saying? Like as I'm watching, Candice LeRae's coming in right now, and she's supposed to be one of the stars of this match. And I'm like, she's like compare her to like Molly Holly or someone that was like a level 4, level 5 character, right? A level 4, level 5 female wrestler back in the day, right? Molly Holly is like better than all these girls combined. You know what I'm saying? There's absolutely nothing to look forward to here. Like, no one cares where Io Shirai is going to be in 5 years. Not one person gives a rat's ass about this, right? They're all shit. They're all interchangeable. The worst one by far is Ember Moon. Since I was working, I had the volume all the way down when she made her entrance, right? And she comes out wearing like this skull mask. It's the goofiest thing ever. There's no reason why she's doing this, right? It's just like, here, cosplay something. You know, here, you're a wrestler now. Cosplay something. This is my brutality. Rhea Ripley says, what is your brutality? What the fuck are you talking about, you know? So, again, this has more to do with this match than it does with this general rant about how I'm starting to fucking hate this shit more and more every day, motherfuckers. So, yeah, the primary thing is this pay-per-view, these gimmick matches are complete shit. Secondly, something that this match made me realize, but that's generally a problem in wrestling, is the oversaturation of wrestling. Now, what I mean by this is not, you know, there's a show every day and Raw is 3 hours. I don't really mind that, to be honest. I have no problem with Raw being 3 hours. I skip around that son bitch anyways, right? But what I do have a problem with is there's so many wrestlers, right? So right now, in this match, there's a wrestler called Toni Storm, right? I've seen this girl 2 or 3 times. All of a sudden, she's relevant. You know, who the fuck is Toni Storm? I don't know who this bitch is. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. Apparently, she was like from NXT UK. So I started thinking to myself, who's the champion in NXT UK? And I had to think about it for a minute until I came up with Kaylee Ray. Because maybe she's not champion anymore, but as far as I know, she's champion, right? Because I watched like an episode of NXT UK, and she was like there, and I think she was the champion. I'm just thinking to myself, dude, does anyone care about Kaylee Ray moving up to the main roster? Like, if Kaylee Ray is walking around in London, or wherever the fuck she lives, wherever the fuck they hold NXT UK, do you think any person in London recognizes her on the street? No, not one person recognizes her at all. That's kind of the problem. You know what I'm saying? Nobody knows who these people are. And the reason why nobody knows is because there's absolutely zero prestige in being the NXT UK champion. Because what that means is you are the pre-show champion of the pre-show of the pre-show's pre-show. You understand what I'm saying? There's about 17 pre-shows in that sentence, and they're all valid. Think about it. The pre-show here, right? Like NXT is the minor leagues of WWE, right? So there's that. Number one. Number two, you have NXT UK. If you're in NXT UK, the only hope that you have, realistically, is that one day you might make it to NXT. Look at Pete Dunne, right? Pete Dunne was like NXT UK champion for like 15 years. You know what I'm saying? And then finally he made it to the big leagues for him. NXT normal. You know what I'm saying? NXT normal. The real stars, like AJ Styles, for example, don't even need to go to NXT, right? And people are like, wow, I can't believe Vince McMahon didn't force AJ Styles to go to NXT. Of course he didn't. AJ Styles is not a jobber. You know what I'm saying? You can tell he's not a jobber, right? Drew McIntyre, I don't know why he went to NXT. It makes absolutely no sense to your boy. You know what I'm saying? But there is an oversaturation. Like WWE, I understand they're trying to take over the global wrestling market even more. But imagine this. Imagine when you have like NXT India and NXT Japan, right? What is that guy's goal? You know, to make it to main event one day? And when I say main event, I don't mean the main event. I mean the show called the main event, right? Like, or what? To make it 205 live, that will be his career achievement. You know what I mean? And that's what happens when you sign all these jabrones. When you sign people no one cares about and no one's ever heard of. You know what I mean? Like, I thought Shotzi Blackheart was cool because she would come out with, or she does come out still, with a little tank thing, right? But that shit got stale real fast. You know what I mean? After the tank thing, what's the difference between her and Candice LeRae? Why are they feuding? What's the difference between the two of them? They're both two weirdos with like strangely colored hair, similar body types, similar moves kind of. Nothing exciting about either one. So what's the point? You know, what is there to look forward to, you know? That's kind of the biggest problem here, right? This oversaturation has made it that there's nothing to look forward to. You know, you have like these nameless tag teams. This is a problem of AEW too, you know? Yeah, sure. AEW signed Sting. That's a good get. I'm not going to lie, right? But if you watch an episode of AEW Dynamite, you will see something. You will see some dumb shit like someone saying like on AEW Dark, it'll be like, you know, the Putnam Brothers versus like, you know, Eversting or some other bullshit like tag teams that like they're never going to sign. These are just indie tag teams that nobody cares about, you know? And it's like, dude, why are you doing that? You know what I mean? You have your own roster. Push those people, right? Have Peter Avalon get a win. I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? But nobody wants to see this garbage. Nobody wants to see Cody versus Warhorse. What the hell is that all about, right? There is an oversaturation of wrestling, and the indies are to blame. The indies have made it, like, when I say the indies, I mean not just the existence of the indies, but the fact that people from the indies have been recruited heavily by Triple H, who doesn't know what the fuck he's doing anymore, right? They've been recruited heavily by Triple H, and now the subtext kind of is this, right? The transitive property, motherfucks. Google the transitive property if you don't know it. Think about it. So you have Undertaker, right? Undertaker beats everyone. Roman Reigns beats Undertaker, right? So by the transitive property, Roman Reigns is just as good, or if not better, than Undertaker. Then you have Dean Ambrose beat Roman Reigns, and then all of a sudden, boom, just like that, we've skipped a few steps, right? Now, by the transitive property, Dean Ambrose might be able to beat The Undertaker. I know this doesn't always work that way, but that's the logic behind it, right? So when they sign, I don't know, like Sami Callihan, they're like, oh, he beat Dean Ambrose once. And Michael Cole will spout that fact and be like, ah, this guy, he holds a victory over like this guy and that guy, right? So they'll do that with the most inane of accomplishments, right? So like they'll sign like Nakamura and they'll be like, oh, he's an IWGP champion, heavyweight champion, just like Lesnar, right? The implications being that somehow, because they held the same bullshit title, that Nakamura is on the same level as Lesnar, right? Which is ridiculous to even suggest. And the fans, they buy into this. They're like, oh, well, Nakamura beat the guy that beat the guy that beat the guy that beat Brock Lesnar, therefore he's just as good. You know, like you've heard that argument before. You've heard the whole like, well, Eddie Guerrero beat Brock Lesnar, so why can't like Daniel Bryan beat Brock Lesnar? They're both tiny guys, and you know Eddie Guerrero lost to Rob Van Dam, and during Rob Van Dam's farewell tour in like whatever bullshit indie fed, Daniel Bryan beat him, right? So it's that kind of nonsense that you keep hearing, right? And this comes from the oversaturation of wrestling and wrestling exposure in the indies, right? So that's why you have someone like Warhorse, right? Someone that no one's ever heard of before, and likely someone that no one will ever hear of again, you know? And Warhorse comes out there and like Tony Schiavone is like, oh, Warhorse is like a great wrestler, you know? He's really made his mark in the indies, beating like Caleb Conley and some other jabron, you know what I mean? But then eventually Excalibur will be like, ah, well, he also holds a victory over Sami Zayn or some bullshit like that, let's say, right? You know, and all of a sudden, like, if you go back down the chain, everyone is now kind of equal, right? So that's why it's acceptable to present Warhorse as a legitimate challenger for Cucky Rhodes. Cucky Rhodes, who at the end of the day has been a WrestleMania wrestler. You know, he beat Rey Mysterio at WrestleMania. You know, like if Darby Allin now beat Cody Rhodes, Rey Mysterio has beaten Randy Orton. So therefore, Darby Allin is better than Randy Orton. That's the logic that the indies and AEW applies. So that's how that oversaturation is happening over there. In WWE, it's happening kind of through that, but also through just signing everyone, right? They're signing all these people that will never amount to anything. You know what I mean? I don't care how long they plan on pushing Kushida. Kushida will never be WWE champion. Anyone that thought that Kushida was going to be a main eventer is out of their fucking minds, right? They're out of their minds. So that's what I'm saying. These things are not going to happen. And all this shit started when they started signing, like, and I don't get me wrong, some people in the indies are obviously good. Like Seth Rollins and AJ Styles are good wrestlers, you know? Seth Rollins looks like a guy that is athletic. He looks like a guy that, like, and he is athletic, obviously. He looks strong. He's got like a decent physique, you know what I mean? But then you have Kevin Owens, you know? Then you have Kevin Owens, and you see that horseshit. You see Kevin Owens, and you're like, oh, Kevin Owens beat Jay Briscoe. Jay Briscoe beat Jay Lethal, who beat Kurt Angle. You know, all of a sudden it's like, oh, they're all on the same level, you know? So it's that kind of horseshit that, like, has pretty much been instrumental in ruining wrestling, you know? And speaking of which, I gotta make the last point, right? I heard that on SmackDown, what's it called? The Forgotten Sons debuted with Baron Corbin. They got rid of, what's his name? Gunner, Jackson Riker, right? Because he made a tweet that was pro-Trump. Now, I don't remember the tweet. I remember I saw it. But the tweet was like, he's like, I'm proud of our president, right? Or something to that effect. And then, like, Kevin Owens is like, oh, you have a shitty catchphrase, right? And then Mustafa Ali, right, is like, oh, I can't believe you would say this, right? Like, these fucking pansies, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's one thing to dislike the president. That's your prerogative, right? But if someone else likes the president, right, if you're going to be a piece of shit and shame them on social media and essentially ruin their careers, at least in the short term, maybe forever, maybe in the long term, right? You're a piece of shit, right? Kevin Owens and Mustafa Ali, the type of people, the type of men that Kevin Owens and Mustafa Ali are not the kind of guys that in real life, if it were the other way around, like if the majority opinion, right, in the media was that Trump is great and Gunner or Jackson Riker showed support, right? People like Mustafa Ali and Kevin Owens would never have the balls to speak out, right? They will only speak out when their opinion matches that of the status quo, right? And furthermore, in real life, in any other kind of debate or argument, someone like Mustafa Ali or Kevin Owens would not even look at someone like Jackson Riker the wrong way, because it's very evident that Jackson Riker would pulverize both of these jabrones simultaneously, right? Have you seen that guy? Right? Have you seen that guy, motherfucks? You know, we have to worry about Mustafa Ali. Oh, they held me down. Like, shut the fuck up. And fat ass Kevin Owens. You know what I'm saying? We have like a good wrestler, right? He's playing a role. His personal opinions shouldn't matter to anyone. Just like Mustafa Ali's personal opinions should matter to anyone, right? But they only matter when Mustafa Ali is butthurt, right? Because Jackson Riker supports President Trump, right? If you are someone that dislikes someone because of their political belief, even if it's the other way around, like if you have someone that's like a huge Biden fan, right? Obviously, it goes the same both ways, right? You have a huge Biden fan, and you look at them and you say, I can't believe you're a Biden fan. You're a piece of shit. You're the real piece of shit, motherfuckers. You're the real piece of shit. So it's this kind of horseshit that is ruining wrestling. This kind of PC nonsense and oversaturation. Like the fact that Kevin Owens made it as a wrestler is ridiculous. It is preposterous. Same thing with Mustafa Ali. At least Mustafa Ali is not a fat pig, you know? But like Mustafa Ali sucks. He looks like a pussy. He acts like a pussy. He leads like a pussy. All he just doesn't, not believable at all, right? But this is all a byproduct of the same thing. Continuous pushing of signing everyone culture, right? Just signing everyone. Toni Storm, I'm just looking at her. She's just like some random broad. Like, she has no business being here. Like, the standard cannot be this low. You know what I'm saying? Where's the Trish Stratus? And I don't even mean this in terms of appearance. I actually mean this in terms of skill. A few videos ago, I said Trish Stratus was not a super skilled wrestler, and I stick to that. Neither was Lita. But they're more skilled than Toni Storm. Like, Amber Moon, who's supposed to be one of the athletic ones, one of the good ones, the ones that can wrestle, did like 15 botches this match, right? So I don't want to hear this horse shit about the women's revolution, right? As if the implications being that the women have been held down unjustifiably. No, they're held down because they're not entertaining, motherfucks. You know, when an entertaining one comes around that people actually like, right? Like Becky Lynch, fine. You know, if people like her, she puts asses in seats, push her, man. I don't give a fuck. But what I'm saying is this: the oversaturation of wrestling, the gimmick matches, and these pansy-ass wrestlers, right, just going at each other on Twitter is not good. It's not good for wrestling, and it's not good for wrestling fans, motherfucks. That's all I got to say about that. Stay tuned. Well, not today, but at some point, you're going to get that review for fucking, what's it called? I'm saying War Games, motherfuckers.